Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Hammerheads. This is a expose of 17 years of Hammer. It's not really an expose. Basically, it's myself, Miles Watts. What's my name again, Marcus? And this is
Your Miles Watts.
And we have been going through a very huge number of Hammer movies, one from each year of their output, actually, 1957 to 1974, as based on the BFI list, which is a very good idea that especially my partner Vicky, I think, came up with. She said, why don't you watch all these Hammer movies and talk about them with my... Oh, yeah, good idea. And we've managed to cover 1957 to 1972 so far.
Yeah.
And this week we're in 1973, which is nearly the year we were both born. With what's the film this time, Marcus?
It is the Satanic Rites of Dracula, or better known as, or worse known as, Dracula is dead and well and living in London.
Yes. And as Christopher Lee said, it's ridiculous that I have to market a film not a comedy with this ridiculous,
Fatuous, pointless, absurd.
Rightly so. And the good thing about that whole story about the title was it sums the movie up, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
I would call this movie definitely a 50-50 movie because 50% of it is very well done and good, and 50% of it is so weird and hilarious, bordering on the ridiculous, that it kind of makes it what it is.
It's kind of like if you went along to an improv comedy evening and told them to do a sketch that kind of combined John le Carré and like Hammer horror.
Yeah. So it's 1973. It's the last pairing of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. It's the last time Christopher Lee played Dracula. He'd had enough by then. And it's the same year he played Lord Summerisle in The Wicker Man as well.
Is it? Oh yes, he looks that kind of. His hair's slightly more bouffant in this one.
That's right.
Wicker Man.
I had to look it up. I was like, hang on a minute, what year was The Wicker Man? 73. And so I don't know which one he filmed first. I imagine this one was filmed quite rapidly.
Yes.
I think The Wicker Man might have been filmed over a longer period, but yes, he does look like he's got that Lord Summerisle vibe. And Peter Cushing was a few years away from playing Governor Tarkin in Star Wars, so he looks very much of that era.
He does, yes, and he's probably only 24 or something.
Yes, exactly. I always like Carrie Fisher quote about him that he was such a sweet man, and he always smelled of lavender.
Yes.
Although, as
we've said before, it's hard to even picture him as a young man. But
he's always looked, he's always looked like that, hasn't he? So this was what are some facts about this one, Marcus?
Some facts. Well, it's a fact that
give me some hard facts.
Hammer was losing money hand over fist, so they were trying to they were trying to get the kids along to the cinema, weren't they? So they were trying to bring Hammer up to date. But actually, in doing so, they've sort of made it very much of its era, which means that it's probably now, when you watch it, more dated than any of the other films that we've seen.
That was my first thought. It was very dated. It was like obviously one of our favorite horror movies is Amicus movie, The Beast Must Die.
Which I was going to mention The Beast Must Die, yes.
Yeah, which also begins with that waka waka wow 70s music, which instantly dates it. And that's the first thing I said. There's some nice shots of Piccadilly Circus and so forth.
There's that kind of blaxploitation kind of music, kind of blaxploitation.
Yeah. I expected Calvin Lockhart to come herring out of the behind a double-decker bus, and it was it's instantly slightly funny because it's got that music.
It kind of looks like an episode of The Sweeney or something.
It does look a bit like The Sweeney, and actually it reminds me of this. And it's only 8 years before American Werewolf in London, which I think I mentioned every single episode. It's got that kind of vibe to it, which is camp horror in London, and that feels very dated American Werewolf in London, but only because of when it was shot. So you've got the sleazy bits of London, which are now all gentrified and posh, and obviously Trafalgar Square and stuff like that. So the opening,
the opening sequence is this sort of silhouette of Dracula slowly being sort of acetated in over the pictures of
Yeah.
tourist spots of London,
Yeah.
showing him casting his long shadow across the city.
It was, and it sort of it almost reminded me of something like Frenzy, Hitchcock's Frenzy or something like that, in that
Oh yeah.
it felt very of the time, but it was trying to be modern. I mean, instantly you've got a scene with a guy who's wearing a black polo neck and a sheepskin waistcoat.
A sheepskin whisker, yeah.
Yeah, and a big fat porn mustache, and you're like, gosh,
And
what
dark
decade
glasses
we're in?
and yeah.
Yeah. And again, it was like, why are we watching a ritual that's being sort of like observed by someone in control of the technology? Like, okay, this is again, it was a bit like Beast Must Die.
Again, it's like, well, let's show some technology. Let's show that we're cutting edge and with it. But
Yeah,
I don't understand. Were the sheepskin waistcoats, was that regulation uniform, do you think?
I don't know, but this very week, Vicky's just bought one.
Is
So
it a
there's
bu
still
were they bulletproof sheepskin waistcoats?
yeah. It's like I don't know if you've ever seen Buffy, but the character of Giles is the librarian. He wears tweed, and he gets at one point he gets attacked by a knife, and he says the one plus side of layers of tweed is that they provide adequate protection from knives. I'm like, yeah,
Bulletproof elbow patches.
yeah, exactly. That's why our geography teacher used to wear them. I always thought it was just because he was really cheap, but it's actually because he'd been probably elbowing people and worn out the elbow. But yeah, the styles in this are just so unmistakably early 70s because one great thing about 70s style is it tried so hard to be modern
Yes.
by
Yeah.
stamping itself very much of the then. It
Yeah.
instantly dates itself because it went out of style very quickly shortly afterwards. So obviously the 60s is this kind of timeless you can spot a 60s outfit, but a 70s is just so like
There's something about mid 70s that really
mid
has
70s.
dated pretty badly.
It's almost like the noughties. Everything was a bit shapeless and sort of,
Yeah.
nondescript in the middle of the noughties. But yeah,
In the
so
middle of
yeah,
the 70s, everything was a bit kind of brown and beige and like particularly the cookery books. But yeah.
and that was just our lounges,
Yes.
yeah, patterned sofas and before everything sort of went very drab and grey in the 90s or slightly technicolored in the 80s. But yeah, the 70s is quite an amazing decade for film, particularly because you think about some of the best films ever made
Yeah.
are in the 70s, those gritty cop dramas and stuff of which this isn't one. This is
Well,
more like Brannigan starring John Wayne, but it's about vampires.
we should say that this actually follows the film from the year before
It
from
does.
Hammer, which was Dracula AD 1972.
Yeah, which they
Um,
mentioned a few times, don't they?
and it reprises the role of the is it the detective or the I forget his name in this.
Oh yeah,
But it brings back, is it Inspector Murray?
Murray, that's it. And also another character who comes in later, the granddaughter,
Yes, that's right. Well,
Van
Joanna
Helsing's
Lumley
granddaughter,
plays the Van Helsing's granddaughter in this. I
Joanna
think it was
Lumley.
Stephanie Beacham in the
That's right,
previous film.
Stephanie Beacham. Yeah,
Um,
Joanna Lumley. It's excellent seeing Joanna Lumley turn up. But the thing is, I associate her with Patsy from Ab Fab. So every time she does that ooh face, I just think of Patsy when she smells something. So it was making me laugh. But she was, she's very good as Joe Lumley. She just turns up and is is incredible and iconic.
I think she's sort of, I mean, obviously no one really knew who Joanna Lumley was at the time, but
No,
her character is a bit all over the place, and I don't think it's her fault. I think it's the
yeah,
script that she's sort of introduced as this very knowledgeable granddaughter of Van Helsing, who you think is just going to be the one who saves the day almost, but then
yeah.
becomes a bit of a dribbling wreck in the middle. And I think it's sort of lazy screenwriting, really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, I would say everyone kind of fumbles about and does their best in this film. It's quite messy in terms of the characters, the script. Everyone is professional and does their best. And
Yes.
sometimes the cracks show a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, and sometimes, like we're saying, when Joanna Lumley's getting attacked by the Dracula's vampire girls,
Yes.
it's a little bit. Oh, come on, you could get out of that.
Yes.
It kind of goes into like a 50s housewife afraid of a mouse sort of thing. It's like, yeah, and the guy, what's his name? He's a bit of a drip. The guy who looks a bit like David Warner, who is one of the main characters. I'm terrible with
Oh,
character
just
names.
this Peter Torrance. This
That's the lad. He's not a great character, but he's supposed to be the hero, you know. Although I did notice when when Joanna Lumley first comes in with a tray of drinks, you know, the two older men both really pervy. When they both look at her like, oh,
yeah.
that's a granddaughter. It's like, yeah, all right, check her out and then and then leave.
Well, there's the whole first sequence with the ritual
Yes,
and the nakedness and the men. Obviously,
very,
these are sort of supposed to be statesmen and the higher echelons of British
yeah.
society. But then when the alarm goes off, they're all frantically rubbing these kind of inverted
Probably the
blood
Freddie
crosses off
Jones.
their foreheads and
Freddie
looking
Jones
like,
is.
yeah, frightened school kids when the headmaster comes in.
Yeah, they do. Ooh, I'm not really part of a cult. It was quite eyes wide shut, wasn't it? It's like
It was
but
very
the
Ice White
police have
Shut.
bust it, you know, and they're like, oh no, we're not doing anything. And it was all high court judges and policemen and stuff, you know. But
Yes.
yeah, Freddie Jones is in it again, and sort of lurking there with a pervy look on his face, and he was good. I liked his description of how the plague is going to work. At first, your flesh rots off, and then
Freddie Jones was great in this because he was
yeah,
he was truly just a terrified, dribbling wreck.
he was, yeah, yeah.
And you could he kind of made it all a bit more believable. And actually, it's kind of quite nice the scene with him and Peter Cushing going to visit him and
Mm.
realizing just what was at stake.
Yeah, steak, lol.
Stake.
I loved what I loved was in this the vampire lore, and I loved the detail they went into with the vampire lore. Things like that were the really top bits of it.
I think
The
that's because I mean because you've got these blundering detectives and inspectors,
um,
so you can do a bit of exposition, can't you? You can talk about all
yeah,
the different things that kill Dracula. And
yeah,
actually, on that note, the the most pathetic Dracula killing scenes, given that this is
yeah,
Christopher Lee's last
yeah.
outing as Dracula, this was a very disappointing denouement.
It was. I mean, the funny thing was that you know it's going to be the hawthorn bush, but
Killed
the
by a
fact that
hawthorn
the
bush.
fact that he gets tangled up in a hawthorn bush, and again, Christopher Lee does his best. You know, he doesn't come off as ridiculous, but I bet he was thinking, this is ridiculous.
This is
I'm
ridiculous.
Dracula gets killed by a hawthorn. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Um, and then, but the usual when he gets staked, that was very good. I thought they did. I always look forward to the creepy music and the melting of the corpse and the
Yes.
casting of the skeleton and that kind of thing. I thought that was very well done. But yeah, I love things like the melting down of the silver cross in the crucible and the bullet and
I thought that Cushing was excellent. I mean, I thought
very
that he
good.
was really, really committed in this. I mean, Christopher Lee looks as though he sort of sleepwalks through it a bit,
He
and that's
didn't.
sort of part of the
Yeah,
characterization of Count Dracula or
kind of.
D.D. Denham by this
He did
point.
Denham, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, he did look like a slightly lackluster.
He did a bit. I think I still got tingles when towards the end it was Lee and Cushing having a fight, the final fight in the
Yeah.
house and then outside in the woods, because you're like, this is Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee. You know, this is
Yes.
the last time they played these characters. So I did get a tingle of appreciation there. And I think, yeah, Peter Cushing's always excellent. He was such a professional. As they say in the parlance of our times, he understood the assignment, you know.
Yes.
He's never less than engaging. You always think he believes what's happening and he believes he's that character. And he never
Yes.
he's a real old school professional.
And they do
Um,
play up the old adversaries, don't they? The
yeah,
whole history, the fact that all of his ancestors have been vampire killers, and
yeah, yeah. What's he called in this one? Laura, is it Lorimer Van Helsing?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which I quite liked, and I liked the set. The sets were very actually they were more real world. The sets weren't they? I know there were
Yeah,
some
totally.
cheesy grassy knolls and stuff like that, but I thought the sets were very nice. Yeah, it sort of reminded me of Hitchcock's London, where like in Frenzy, you'd creep in and out of doorways, and
Yes.
like creeps into the office and out, and um, so the good stuff was very good, and the shaky stuff was very shaky. I think
I think
some of
just the premise was
yeah.
just didn't sit very comfortably. Apparently, Horror
Mm.
News called the film one of the most laughable attempts to update a horror character to this present day.
Yeah, it was, I would say, a clunky attempt. Yeah, it was a clunky attempt, but it was definitely enjoyable. Um, I was thinking like it was very of the time, as in let's update it and kill it at the same time. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think the problem with it is that this premise of using the bubonic plague to
yeah.
decimate the world.
Mm.
Um, it sort of overshadows the whole Dracula thing, doesn't it? It's like Dracula is a bit of a spent force, and so actually it's going to be a bit of a Bond villain. He's just going to be a Bond villain who's going to be killing off people using
Yeah.
like science.
It was a bit, and it did remind me of is series four, the new, the most reboot of Doctor Who, basically. They had the old guy playing Davros in it, and he in series four, the finale of series four, his plan is to destroy the entire universe, molecule by molecule. And the Doctor's like, "Well, what the hell are you going to achieve? You'll kill everyone, including all the Daleks and yourself." And Davros is like, "Yeah, I know." And it's like, "Oh my God, he's lost his mind." And it just reminded me of that, like Dracula's going, "Yes, I'm going to kill everybody, and I'm just going to swan around, and I'll be the only one left." It's like, um, okay, just so we're clear, you're nuts, right? You're going to be feeding on humans if there aren't any. But he thinks he'll have Joanna Lumley as his sidekick, and it's like it's not a great plan, Drac.
Yes. I mean, it's sort of like, in the early films they talked about sort of having the vampire bite, sort of almost a
Yeah,
stand-in for sex. And
yeah.
now it's almost like the vampire has become the stand-in for actually a more
Mm.
kind of horrendous plot line to do with like, yeah, bu the
Well,
bubonic plague and the whole thing
yeah.
about the really interesting stuff about vampirism and all of that just has been swept to one side, really.
Maybe I think there was a good moment when he entered the room and he bit that girl. As soon as she saw him, she was like under his mesmer stare.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
like, oh, you could tell she was into it. Having not been. But yeah, I am. That's why I Am Legend is so great by Richard Matheson, because it plays with the whole iconography of what vampires are, and it provides scientific reasons to why vampires can't have garlic and don't like sunlight. It's because of their condition, and then gradually, they see Neville, who's the only human survivor, as their Dracula, because he's going around trying to kill them all. So they see the
yeah.
last remaining human as their Dracula, which is a genius twist on it. But it just reminded me of that. Like, there's going to be one Dracula left, there's one vampire left to rule them all, and everyone else is going to die. But I thought that the plague thing, ridiculous that it was, I thought the description of it was great when Freddie Jones was talking about what's going to happen. I thought quite
Yeah.
like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse thing.
I thought that was really good. I just then thought, well, why bother having Dracula at all? It's
Yeah,
not.
it was flimsy as a premise.
And it wasn't played at all tongue in cheek. It was, I mean, it was one of, I mean, we always say that there's not much joke
Yeah,
or laughter in the Hammer film, but this
yeah,
time there really wasn't. I couldn't really kind of detect any.
it was quite earnest, wasn't it? I
It
think it
was
was.
pretty earnest.
Yeah, I think like when you think about the original Dracula, it was so stylish and gothic and just very theatrical. And I can't say this was theatrical other than the bits where it was really wobbly and you felt like you were watching a bad play. Having said that, it is a fun movie. And I think, yeah, it's a flimsy one, I would say. I think it's a 50-50. Like if someone said, "Is it good?" I'd be like,
Yeah, I couldn't quite bring myself to say it was good.
no. If you've enjoyed lots of other Dracula films or Hammer films, yeah, watch it. It's entertaining.
Well, that's
You
a
know.
good point. Which of the Dracula films we've watched in this series,
Mm.
what's been your favorite?
Oh, 1960 Dracula,
Oh, the original.
the original. I think it's just pretty perfect. I think they sort of hit their stride by then. It's Lee's iconic performance in it, I think, that does it for me. But I love the set, the music, the cinematography. I think it's
Okay.
really good. Why do you disagree with
I,
the
I,
fact that?
well, I actually, for entertainment value, I think Brides of Dracula, I
Oh yeah, I did
thought was
enjoy
good,
that.
and that didn't have Christopher Lee in it, but it did
No,
have Peter Cushing in it.
that's true. That's the one with the lad who is like a lord, isn't it? And he was
Yeah,
going around. Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed that one actually. But yeah, I think if I had to pick one, it'd be original Dracula.
yeah.
Um, Also, partly because I hadn't seen it for so long, and I went out and bought it on Blu-ray, and because I thought I'm going to probably enjoy this, so I'll probably want to own it, and I really did, and it just looked incredible, and I thought, yeah, there's a reason why this film. It's not just because of Christopher Lee looming out the shadows with his teeth out. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah. I mean, fair play to them for trying to mix the genres.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was really the most fitting end to what has been a brilliant cycle of films.
No, it was a bit after the fact, wasn't it? Like they came back, they did their best, but it didn't add anything new, and they probably were a bit. Right. Well, we came back. Are you happy now? Can we go? And then went
Must
off to do other things.
we must go back and watch Dracula AD 1972 now.
Oh yeah, because and also Count Dracula, which Christopher Lee did the same year. I think he played Dracula quite a few times that year. Where he's got like mutton chops
Oh,
uh
yeah.
on the poster. That looks quite interesting. So he obviously was drawn to playing the role, but he probably got a lot of offers, didn't he? Hey Chris, do you want to come play Dracula? How much?
So,
100 grand. Yes, I'll do it.
Dracula AD 1972 is the film with Alucard, the Dracula
Yeah,
backwards is the name,
that's right. Yeah,
rather than
which is
D.D. Denham. Well, that episode puts to bed Dracula. Next
yeah. Bye bye,
time, we'll
Dracula.
be putting to bed Frankenstein.
And we've got Cushing's back again, isn't he?
Cushing's back,
And so is Dave Prowse.
and so is the monster from hell.
That's Darth Vader and Governor Tarkin in
Oh,
the same Hammer movie, and that'll be the next episode, which will be on the last episode of this first 17 episodes.
bunch of episodes.
Which is
Indeed, it
great
will.
because the whole sort of, mission statement was I want to see all of these Hammer films so I can say I've seen a huge chunk of their output. Um, and it's been great because they're so similar and yet also different from each other.
Yeah, just to see
Um,
the arc of where the films went over the
the Ark
years,
of the
just having
Covenant.
to, yeah, having to reinvent themselves
Yeah.
and think of new ways of doing things, not always successfully, but
Well,
next
it'll
time we
be
can explore what we have learned in the
yeah, it'll be
process.
interesting to see how other like the Marvel universe is currently
Mm,
about 16, 17 years old, and some would argue that it's waning. It's definitely the quality's off. They seem to bring out films that people either love or hate now rather than big smash
mm,
after they finished Avengers. So it'd be interesting to see how long they can hold on because Hammer found themselves out of work in the mid 70s. I think they came back in 79 with The Lady Vanishes, which is not a horror film at all. But
oh, yeah, interesting.
I think that's the Elliot Golden Silver Shepherd one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how long Marvel can hang on before they go, you know what? People don't want superhero movies anymore. And people were definitely getting that way in the mid 70s with Hammer. They were like, they'd rather see Texas Chainsaw Massacre and
Well, yeah.
Friday the 13th and stuff.
And there was suddenly so much product out there, and we're about to
Yeah.
go into the 80s where there was just ridiculous amounts of
Uh,
product everywhere. So,
80s arguably one of the best decades for horror, but So yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed this one. Go back and listen to some of the old ones if you haven't. And we'll be back next time with the last in this series, even though we're quite irregular broadcasters. So sorry if you had to wait months and months between episodes, but we will be back, just like James Bond. So it's a good night from me,
I'll be back.
and it's a good night from Arnold Schwarzenegger.